Corporations do not and have not ever given a single toss about you. Not once in the history of big business has a corporation ever genuinely cared about people over profit. Time and time again, when given the option to make the lives of the people, the workforce that serve them, better, they have and will continue to choose not to. This isn't news. It's not some groundbreaking revelation. It's a fact. It is a hallmark facet of capitalism. Under capitalism, the only goal a business has is to make money. That's it. Everything else is tied back to that goal. So when it's no longer popular to care about the downtrodden, the poor and the needy, when it's no longer profitable to care about minorities, be they racial, sexual or spiritual, they're not going to. And we're just supposed to be all right with that. Ever since the most unqualified, uneducated social agitator since 1913 took power of those colonies across the pond, it's never been easier to see. Within days of this soulless husk taking office, 13 of the biggest corporations in America announced that they were getting rid of their equal opportunity schemes. As if the whole equal opportunity thing was just a passing trend they were tired of. 13 of the biggest companies in America announced that they were going to stop publicly showing support of the LGBTQ+ community, as if they were somehow unimportant now. Both of these things coming at a time, mind you, when the President of the United States of America, in a once-before-precedented move, has peeled back the Equal Opportunity Act of 1965. The act that stopped people from discriminating against you when you're trying to get a job based on things like race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. He has made it legal for a corporation to do that. And now that it's legal, they're gonna. Why do you think the law was there to begin with? Target, Amazon, Meta, McDonald's, Walmart, Boeing, Molson's Coors, Lowe's, Ford, Brown-Forman, Harley-Davidson, John Deere, the goddamn FBI. Just like that, on a dime, for a dime, these companies have sold the American people down the river. These companies have shown their belly. We know now that our very existence in the eyes of these companies is defined solely as a market to be pandered to be bought. To them, you are a number on a spreadsheet. Each one of these companies, by the way, were heavily involved in rainbow capitalism before our spag-bog-coloured commander-in-chief reared his balding head. And I have no doubt that once someone comes along to eat said spag-bog, well, they'll go right back to it, begging and pleading, please, oh please, please forgive us for siding with the fascists, forgive us for capitalising on your genocide. This is why we boycott. It's not some cute, quirky fun to have with the girls. It's a statement. It is a line in the sand that tells these people that we have had enough. But boycotting alone isn't enough. Well done, you've drawn that line in the sand, and they're certainly not going to cross it. But the whole point of rainbow capitalism was that they weren't trying to cross it. They were trying to get you to cross that line. Without you, yeah, they might lose a sizable hit to their income. But they still have everyone else. Most of which these days I find fall into some pretty easily definable categories. The people who don't care, and the people who wanted exactly this. For that second one, well, what would you call someone that wants to get rid of anti-discrimination laws, that wants gay people out of the public eye, that gets down on their knees for corporations that steal their wages, make the quality of their life worse, and have zero respect for them? I know that what I would want to call them would get this speech demonetized. So much for free speech, reps? But I would also call them victims. Victims of their own stupidity, yes, but still victims. And if they're not going to save themselves, it's probably going to be up to us to do that, although saving has quite a few definitions. But that first group of people, the people who don't care, I would honestly argue that they're worse. An open and outspoken racist at least has an opinion. Don't get me wrong, it's a horrendous one. It's an ancient and archaic one that has no business in the modern civilized world, but someone who just doesn't care? Someone who doesn't care when decades of social progress that blood has been shed for is dragged back. Someone who doesn't care when billionaire CEOs are helping to stack the biggest global democracy that exists with anti-education, anti-compassion, anti-freedom, racists, sex offenders, bigots, bullies, and conmen. Someone who doesn't care when people any shade darker than a sunburn are being rounded up and put into camps, separated from their families, harassed on the street. Someone who doesn't care when the world's leading billionaire performs a Hitler salute right behind the presidential podium and people defend him for it. For refusing to care, the fascists will thank you. And if that sentence doesn't haunt your conscience, then all I can say is stop lying to yourself. Because it's not that you didn't care. Obviously, at that point, you just didn't want to admit that you wanted this. To stay silent at a time like this is nothing more than an endorsement. So what are we supposed to do? If boycotting isn't enough, how do we really stick it to these corporations that clearly only respect us so long as there's money to be wrung from us? Well, in the long term, never buy from them again. If they only want to acknowledge the struggle that there is to be hired when you're not straight, cis and white, then we don't need them. If they only want to acknowledge the prevalent issue of racism and xenophobia in the workplace when it's convenient, then we don't need them. If they only want to promote pride and acceptance when it is convenient, then we don't need them. It'll be hard. I'm not saying it's not. Some of the businesses listed here have spent billions to become the default option you think of whenever you want to shop or travel or scroll. But this is how you take back some of your power. Now, though, in the immediate, we have to act. We have to do more than just preach. We need to remind these corporations that they have only gotten to where they have because they were useful. And we need to remind them now more than ever that they are running out of their use. We need to be defiant. We need to be heard. But to do these things, we have to do them offline. Online, your activism is perfect. Letting the truth flow through our social media like a great reservoir when these companies have made a deliberate and open show of trying to censor them. But we sit now in an echo chamber. So many people talking about protesting, supporting protesting, begging for something to be done, but no one doing anything. You need to do something. Because if you don't, then no one else will. It doesn't have to be big. Only the most disillusioned would consider starting out at the level of someone like our Lord and Savior Luigi, but something, anything, is better than nothing. Cut off the people that won't listen to reason. Don't waste your time on them. Let them become isolated and trapped. Give them no sympathy as they die alone for the fascistic cult that they deem oh so important. They have had years to listen. So don't for a second trick yourself into thinking that they are going to change now. No matter how bad things get, do not offer them that olive branch. If they do come to their senses, then offer help, offer community, offer resources, but do not forgive so easily. Because whether through intentional malice or just pure stupidity, they agreed when asked to put a convicted sex offender in the White House. Focus your efforts elsewhere. Focus your efforts on your local communities. It feels like I've heard these words so many times now, but support your local businesses, not just with your money, but with your time. Advertise for them. Ingrain them in the foundations of your community. Connect them to other local businesses. Form a network with them and for them out of the goodness of your own heart and spite. Put up posters, stickers, flyers. Inform the previous generations who don't care to learn how to use social media of just what is going on. Point out what is happening, shove it in their faces until they can't ignore it, and make those that do ignore it feel so very guilty for doing so. The time for playing the moral high ground is long since over. If playing the moral high ground worked, there wouldn't be a convicted sex offender in the White House. There wouldn't be a fascist oligarchy controlling your social medias, and there wouldn't be mass legacy media censorship due to just 5 people owning 80% of all legacy media publications. And that is a British statistic before you say anything. They won because the left refused to call a spade a spade. When the left saw a Nazi, they engaged in the brain-dead debate on whether or not it is one with the Nazis, instead of putting it down like the creature that it is. They won because while our PMs and your Democrats were too busy telling them off for breaking the rules to get their own way, they were busy breaking the rules to get their own way. So many of you have such inspiring voices. You have words that need to be heard, but they need to be heard by someone else. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all of them work on an algorithm that is designed to show you exactly what you want to see and hide the societal rot that you don't. And that algorithm works both ways. They aren't seeing your videos, they aren't hearing your voices, and when they do, they scroll past. If you want to make a change, you have to speak where they can't ignore you. And trust me, I know it's scary. I know, trust me, I talk a big game, but I am still new to protesting myself. I'm still new to making an impact on the real world, but how the hell do you expect to fight fascists if you're too anxious to even speak up against them? All it takes for evil to win is for good to sit there and do nothing. If you want to cut out the rot of this society, you have to start small. You have to start, period. The democratic system has failed. And in the coming years, it is going to be weaponized against you and everyone that you care about. And I am so very confident in saying this because I have eyes, I have ears, I have empathy, I have looked at all of human history and I know what comes next. You should be afraid. You should be very, very afraid. But you should also know by now that that is exactly what they want. The simplest act of defiance that you can perform, online and offline, is just to not give them the satisfaction of being successful. Fight to your last breath, because if they're going to kill you anyway, you better make sure you expend every last ounce of effort you can to make sure they struggle. Fight to cut out the rot of our society. Corporations don't care about you until you remind them that they need you in order to function. And yes, before some brain-dead commenter brings it up, there are corporations that have stuck to their guns. Some have even doubled down on DEI initiatives and LGBTQ+ protections. And yes, you should show them gratitude for that. But just remember, protecting marginalized communities, standing up for human rights, that shouldn't be something you have to thank them for. That is the bare minimum that should be expected of anybody. Remember that. Cut out the rot. See you.